When we talk about relationships, sometimes we meet people who are hard to understand. Two types that often cause confusion are narcissistic partners and avoidant partners. Both can make relationships feel challenging, but they operate in very different ways. A narcissistic partner often seems very focused on themselves. They might appear charming and confident at first. However, their world truly revolves around their own needs and desires. They seek admiration and often lack deep empathy for others. Their self-esteem can be quite fragile, even if it doesn't look that way on the surface. They need constant validation to feel good about themselves, which can be exhausting for their partner. An avoidant partner, on the other hand, presents a different kind of challenge. These individuals value their independence very highly. They often feel uncomfortable with too much closeness or emotional intimacy. While they might desire connection on some level, the fear of becoming too dependent or being engulfed by a relationship is strong. They might seem distant or emotionally unavailable. This is not because they don't care, but because closeness triggers a deep-seated fear. They learned that relying on others can lead to disappointment or pain, so they try to keep a safe emotional distance to protect themselves from potential hurt. It is important to see that these are not just simple labels. These are patterns of behavior. These patterns often come from early life experiences. A person with narcissistic traits might have felt they needed to be extraordinary to get attention. Or perhaps they were overly praised, without learning true self-worth. They learned that their value came from external approval. This makes them constantly seek out that approval. They might not even realize how much this need drives their actions, making them seem self-centered and demanding to those around them, especially their romantic partners. Similarly, an avoidant individual likely learned that emotional expression was not safe. Perhaps their caregivers were unresponsive or inconsistent. They might have felt that showing vulnerability led to being dismissed or hurt. As a result, they developed a coping mechanism of self-reliance. They believe that the best way to avoid pain is to not need anyone too much. This can make their partners feel unloved or pushed away. Understanding these underlying dynamics is the first step to navigating relationships with individuals exhibiting these attachment styles. It helps to see beyond the immediate behaviors to the fears that often fuel them. Narcissistic partners are often on a continuous quest for validation. They need to feel admired and important. This need can make them appear very confident, even charismatic. They might boast about their accomplishments or exaggerate their successes. They want to be the center of attention in social situations. This outward display of confidence, however, is often a cover for deep insecurities. They rely on external praise to maintain their sense of self-worth. Without constant admiration, they can feel empty or insignificant. This makes them highly sensitive to criticism, even if it is constructive feedback. When a narcissistic partner feels ignored or criticized, their behavior can change dramatically. Their charming facade might crumble, revealing a more controlling side. They might become angry or defensive if they don't get the attention they crave. For example, if their partner shares an achievement, the narcissist might try to redirect the conversation back to themselves. Or they might belittle their partner's success to feel superior. This control is a way to manage their anxiety. If they can control the narrative and how others perceive them, they feel safer and more powerful, which temporarily soothes their fragile ego. Consider Sarah, who was dating Mark, a man with narcissistic traits. At first, Mark was incredibly attentive. He showered Sarah with compliments and grand gestures. Sarah felt like she was the most special person in the world. However, as the relationship progressed, Mark became very demanding. He expected Sarah to always prioritize his needs. If Sarah wanted to spend time with her friends or focus on her career, Mark would become moody. He would accuse her of not caring about him enough. He needed her constant attention to feel validated, and when he didn't get it, he tried to control her to ensure he remained her primary focus. This pattern of seeking validation and then becoming controlling when it's withheld is a hallmark. The narcissist isn't necessarily malicious in their intent at all times. Often they are driven by an unconscious fear of being worthless or unlovable. Their grandiosity and need for control are defense mechanisms. These defenses protect them from facing their own deep-seated feelings of inadequacy. Unfortunately, these behaviors create an unhealthy dynamic in relationships. The partner of a narcissist often feels like they are walking on eggshells, constantly trying to manage the narcissist's mood and self-esteem, which is an exhausting and unsustainable role. Avoidant partners exhibit a different set of behaviors, primarily driven by a fear of intimacy. They often value their independence and self-sufficiency above all else. When a relationship starts to get serious or emotionally deep, they might begin to feel uncomfortable. This discomfort isn't necessarily about their partner, it's about the closeness itself. They might start to find fault with their partner or focus on minor irritations. This is often an unconscious way to create distance. They might also express a need for more space or alone time more frequently than their partner is comfortable with. When things get too close, an avoidant partner tends to withdraw. This withdrawal can be emotional or physical. They might become less communicative, share fewer personal thoughts or feelings, or avoid deep conversations. They might also physically distance themselves by spending more time on hobbies, work, or with friends rather than with their partner. This retreat is a protective measure. They are trying to protect themselves from vulnerability. Being vulnerable means opening up to the possibility of being hurt or disappointed, which they find terrifying. Their past experiences might have taught them that relying on others is unsafe. Think about Liam, who was dating Chloe. Chloe had an avoidant attachment style. Whenever Liam tried to talk about their future together or express his deep feelings for her, Chloe would change the subject. Sometimes she would become quiet and distant for a few days. Liam felt confused and rejected. He thought Chloe didn't truly care for him, but Chloe did care. Her withdrawal was her way of managing her anxiety about intimacy. The thought of being deeply connected and potentially losing that connection or being controlled by it was overwhelming for her. She needed to pull back to feel safe and regain her sense of autonomy. This pattern of fearing intimacy and withdrawing is a core characteristic of avoidant individuals. They often suppress their own needs for connection to maintain their independence. They might send mixed signals, appearing interested one moment and distant the next. This can be incredibly confusing and painful for their partners. It's important to understand that this behavior is not a reflection of their partner's worthiness of love. Instead, it's a reflection of the avoidant person's internal struggle. They are caught between a desire for connection and an intense fear of the vulnerability that comes with it. This internal conflict dictates their relationship patterns. Despite their very different outward behaviors, both narcissistic and avoidant partners are profoundly influenced by a deep-seated fear of rejection. The narcissist's grandiosity and need for constant admiration is, in essence, a defense against this fear. They believe that if they are seen as perfect, special, and always in control, then others will not abandon or reject them. Their entire persona is built around eliciting praise and avoiding criticism. When they don't receive this validation, or worse, when they face criticism, it triggers their underlying fear of not being good enough, which feels like a form of rejection. Similarly, the avoidant partner's retreat from intimacy is also rooted in a fear of rejection. They keep others at arm's length because they fear that getting too close will inevitably lead to being hurt or abandoned. If they don't let anyone truly get to know them, or if they don't become too dependent, then the pain of potential rejection is minimized. Their self-sufficiency is a shield. By convincing themselves they don't need anyone deeply, they are trying to preemptively protect themselves from the sting of being let down or left. It's a strategy. I'll leave before you can leave me, or I won't need you, so it won't hurt if you go. Consider a real-life scenario. At a party, a narcissistic individual might dominate conversations, seeking to impress everyone. If someone challenges their opinion, they might react defensively or try to subtly put the other person down. This is to avoid feeling rejected or diminished. In the same social setting, an avoidant person might stay on the periphery, engage in superficial conversations, and leave early if they feel any pressure to connect more deeply. Both are managing their fear, the narcissist by demanding acceptance, the avoidant by minimizing the need for it. Both are ultimately afraid of not being accepted for who they truly are. In conclusion, while the manifestations are starkly different, One craves attention and the other avoids intimacy. The underlying motivation for both narcissistic and avoidant behaviors in relationships often stems from the same core wound, a profound fear of rejection. The narcissist overcompensates by demanding admiration, while the avoidant undercompensates by withdrawing to prevent hurt. Understanding this shared root can foster a bit more empathy, even if the behaviors themselves remain challenging. It highlights that these complex patterns are often born from a place of deep emotional vulnerability, a vulnerability they are desperately trying to hide from the world and, often, from themselves.